Yeah, thank you very much for introducing me. It's an honor for me to be here at this conference. As already said, my name is Hans-Günter Schwarz. I'm from RWE. I do not know if all of you know RWE. We are an energy utility based here in Germany, but we are really a global player in the field of renewable energies, means PV, means offshore wind, onshore wind, but we are also currently ramping up of our battery business, and that's why I'm here. The topic is the urgency of accelerating utility-scale stationary battery for a sustainable future. That's about the question, why do we need batteries for energy transitions? And there are two reasons for that. That's clear, you need batteries for energy transition. I think that's quite clear. One of the reasons is also intuitive. That's here on the left hand, that's the rising share of renewable energy generation, because that means that you have intermittent resources like wind and PV. And PV is, for example, just during the day. And what do you want then to do in the night? You, of course, have also demand for energy, and therefore you must shift the energy from the day to the night. That's quite clear, that's very intuitive. The other reason is not so intuitive, because if you lose, or if you have more and more wind and PV in the system, then you have problems with your grid stability. I don't know if you know that. I have here something with me that's a games toy. I don't know if you know that one here. I don't know if perhaps you have played that when you were young. That's a so-called skyrocopter. I don't know if you know that, it's a kind of helicopter. I will not do that, but you have here a cord and you push it and that it's flying around. And why it is flying around? The simple reason is in here there is energy stored. That's kinetic energy. And the funny thing is that also in the big generators that we have in the energy grid, that's with respect to, for example, coal-fired power stations or nuclear-fired power stations, you have these big generators. I don't know if you know that. And they're also rotating, like my skyrocopter. And what is happening then? This rotating mass that helps you to stabilize the grid. That means if one bigger, for example, one bigger power plant kicks out of the grid, then this so-called inertia comes from the rotating generators. And what is happening now is that we have a fundamental change. You know that we have more and more PV and wind, and with PV and wind you do not have any inertia provision. That's not happening. That means we have a system, sometimes also in Germany, where you have almost no inertia. The reason is we have, for example, when there's a lot of wind, it is during summer, then you have a power production from wind and PV, I don't know, of 80%, and then there's almost no inertia more in the system. And that can lead, and that's the problem, to grid stability issues. And the good thing is that batteries can help you with respect to this issue. I will later on come back to this. Okay, why are batteries needed? And why are we doing battery business? There are several reasons for that. They are highly competitive, and the reason is that's due to the so-called multi-use capability and their high effectiveness. That means you can use them at the same time for different markets. That means not just for the wholesale market, that's the typical market where energy is traded, but also for the provision of firm capacity, that's a so-called capacity market, and also for so-called grid stability products. That's on the one hand classically the frequency response, and on the other hand the provision of inertia, and these markets are currently evolving. That means they are new, and also reactive power. And what I want to show here is that with respect to wholesale, they are quite good. There's a so-called, here on the left hand, a day ahead market. That means there's a tender 1 day ahead for 24 hours, and if you can also bring your battery into this tender and then say, I want to sell, I don't know, batteries in the midday and want to charge it during the night, and then you can earn money by doing so because the price in the night is lower than midday. That's at least the one chance that you have. And then there's also a so-called intraday market. That's a market for flexibility. That means that's a quarter-hour market, and that means that even 10 minutes, up to 10 minutes before delivery, you can trade here energy. And that's, of course, perfect for batteries because they can react very, very fast and very, very fast really in both directions. You can charge them or discharge them, and that's perfect. The other thing is capacity market. That is, you need, for example, in the winter, when you have your peak load, you need capacity. And of course, also battery can provide capacity, but not as good as, for example, peakers, because they have always a limited storage. That means they can just provide for 2 or 3 or 4 hours or 1 hour even. And that means that they are not perfect for this market. And then you have these other two so-called grid stability projects, the classical ones. That's frequency response. I don't know if you know that. That's a market where let's say, the ones who provide it have to react very, very fast within seconds in the end. After 3 seconds, a first reaction should be there, and after 30 seconds, you should provide the full load. And that's, of course, simply doable with a battery, because a battery can react in, if you want to, in milliseconds, but at least in seconds, and can ramp up within 1 second also. That means they are perfect for this kind of market. And it is not just that they can react in milliseconds. What is really good of them, that they have this high provision accuracy. I don't know if you know that when you have, for example, a diesel engine, it is not that even if it's a 1 megawatt diesel engine, that it is always providing 1 megawatt. It is more like that, it is swinging slightly. But if you say to a battery, give me 1 megawatt, then it is 1 megawatt. That means you can really very accurately provide the load that you would need. And then, as said, what is also speaks in favor of a battery is that you can provide inertia and reactive power. And it's also clear that batteries are quite good in providing inertia. I already explained that typically that was provided by, you know that, by the rotating masses. But the rotating masses have, of course, just for a certain time enough power. That's clear. That's also here when I push on the cord, then it is flying but came down quite soon after some seconds. And the same is also true for the big generators. They can help you for some 3, 4, 5 seconds, but not longer than that. But if you have a battery, then you can also do that for a much longer time. That means they can dampen, let's say, swings in the grid much better than even the big generators. And therefore, as said, they are, of course, needed and also crucial for the energy transition. And that's what you all know. Another reason why they're so competitive is, of course, also that the costs of batteries have come down. You all know, of course, this table here showing in 2013 it was around about $800 per kilowatt hour. Now we are down to, I don't know, 150, and the expectation is that this will further go down, and that brings, of course, battery in a good situation for energy markets. Reason behind is, of course, the e-mobility revolution that we have at the moment. Okay, and now about the urgency, I already explained to you that inertia is quite important for the grids, and what I show you here is what happened in 2006. I don't know if you're aware of that, because if you're from Germany or from Europe, you might be aware, and if you're old enough, because in 2006 there had been a kind of blackout over Europe, and what you see here, that was the split that happened. Typically you have one unique grid, that's a so-called UCTE, over complete Europe with the same frequency and all this interlinked. And what happened here is a so-called grid split between different zones. I will not go into the details why that happened, but it happened. And the thing is that it turned out that, of course, inertia played a decisive role also in this split. And to make clear what happened there, I have here on the right-hand side shown you what happened in the northeastern zone. That's the one here with Poland and northeastern part of Germany, Slovakia, and so on. What you see here is that you had a power surplus. That means too much power in the system of 12 gigawatts in 2006. And the reason is you have a lot of wind in the north of Germany, but also in this area. And there was a high wind situation, and then the whole wind flows to the south. And now you had this grid split, one over the other second, and what happened then is you had a surplus of 12 gigawatt in this northeast area. And what then happened is that the frequency went up by 1.4 hertz. This is what you see here on the right-hand side. And that's quite a lot. That's really a lot. And as said, there had been also blackouts over Germany, and the thing is getting even worse in future. Just to be clear here, I have used here numbers from the National Grid Development Plan of Germany, and here you see that it is assumed that for 2035, the power surplus from north to south would be 38 gigawatt. That means more than 3 times than how it was in 2006 when this grid split happened. And it is very clear that because you do not have enough inertia in the system, at least for the moment, that let's say the jump in the frequency would be even higher. And that compared, last time we had 1.4, and in the future, if it would happen again, we would have an increase of the frequency of more than 4 hertz. And you can imagine what then happens. That means there is real urgency. And of course, politics knows that, and markets are currently evolving, and we will have hopefully a market on that from next year on in Germany. Not next year, 2025 on. That means the year after, 2025. And then this problem is addressed, and then batteries and others who can provide inertia will get into the market. Okay, what is needed for the future? You need, of course, and that's decisive, a good, let's say, regulatory framework. I have shown that here. I will not go in the details here because it's not possible. In the end, you need a kind of framework that allows batteries really to earn money. And of course, what is needed then is that you do not intervene, for example, in the pricing mechanism by saying the prices are too high when the market is scarce. But there are also other things that, of course, are needed. The good thing is that politicians are, in the meantime, quite positive with batteries. That had not been the case in the past. And here I have the EU Commission, what they said: energy storage can play a crucial role in decarbonizing the energy system, contributing to energy system integration and security of supply. A decarbonized energy system will require significant investment in storage capacities of all forms. That means they are really in favor now of batteries. And that's the good thing. And I already said that first steps with respect to developing, creating a good framework have already started. One example is here the grid charge regulation. Grid charge is quite crucial for batteries. If they have to pay grid charges, then there are no batteries. And as said, typically they are, and everybody knows that they are not really a final customer. They are batteries, they are storing. That means they took energy out of the system, bring it back. And typically, the case is that they are positive for the grid, because if there is a lot of production in the grid, then the batteries are charged. That means they took over this production, and when there's not enough, then the batteries, when there's too much demand and not enough production, then the batteries will also help the grid by providing then energy. That means they're quite positive for the grid. And in the end, what happened is that, at least in Germany, we have now a prolongation of the grid fill exemption until 2029, and what is still missing is a long-term solution. Yeah, that's my last slide here. That's about what will happen, at least if all the regulatory changes will be implemented. What we expect, if that's happening, is really a quite fast ramp-up of batteries. This is here utility scale batteries, big batteries, from 0.5 gigawatt to 23.7. That's in Germany. That's out of the National Grid Development Plan. And that would mean a growth of more than 25% per year. And we also see that that's now start happening. But of course, might also happen that other technology get more competitive in future, like wind, for example, for inertia. But at least what is foreseen is that there will be some kind of battery ramp up. Okay, yeah, that's it. That's one of our batteries here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Hans-Günter, for bringing us to the storage business. There were a number of questions. I just want to address one. Is RWE planning to use second life batteries?
And we have projects where we are using second life batteries, but these are on a small scale. It is really just pilots to see if it is worth doing that. And they have advantages, but also very clear also disadvantages, because we need a scalable business, and you all know that software is a decisive thing, and as long as there is no standardization in a sense that we can simply put all together, it will. But as said, we have pilots and testing that.
Okay. Thank you very much for answering the question. Thank you, Hans-Günter, again for these insights.